2 years after the start of the Russian special military operation in Ukraine, even the most ardent anti-Russian think tanks in Western countries began to recognize the fact that the intelligence services of NATO countries, and in particular the United States, completely screwed up by misjudging the military capabilities of the Russian military-industrial complex and Russian missile forces. Western analysts are increasingly saying that in 2 years of fighting, the Russian army has not only managed to entirely adapt itself to combat operations, but also take the initiative on the battlefield. The military potential of the Russian Federation turned out to be so powerful and sustainable that even many Western leaders, along with NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg, began to say that Ukraine would still have to agree that the Zaporizhia and Kherson regions, including Crimea and Donbass, would remain part of the Russian Federation. Meanwhile, American experts from the Institute for the Study of War made a rather interesting admission against the background of numerous successes of Russian forces on the battlefield. So, they finally admitted that Russia succeeded in suppressing the Ukrainian air defense. According to American experts, the daily massive Russian missile strikes have led to the fact that the Ukrainian air defense has completely exhausted its capabilities. Surprisingly, the Americans finally admit that almost all Russian ballistic and cruise missiles are reaching their targets in Ukraine. Now, the armed forces of Ukraine are forced to use only separate mobile groups to fight only Russian drones. However, even in the fight against drones, these mobile groups of the armed forces of Ukraine do not always cope with their tasks, since their capabilities are highly limited. For example, the head of the military administration of the Kharkiv region, Oleg Senegyubov, being under the power of his emotions, admitted that during the combined missile strike on Kharkiv, that took place on April 4, the mobile groups of the armed forces of Ukraine managed to shoot down only 3 drones out of 20, while all cruise and ballistic missiles reached their targets. Moreover, the new speaker of the Ukrainian Air Force, Major Ilya Yevlash, officially recognized that Russia uses more than 100 drones and dozens of missiles of various types against Ukraine every day. Belgian military experts from the online edition of Army Recognition conducted their own investigation on this topic and stated that Russia produces about 40 units of Kh-101 cruise missiles every day. As for such cruise missiles as Kalibr and Iskander-K, as well as Iskander-M ballistic missiles, their production reaches 50 units per month. In general, the total number of missiles that Russia produces per month reaches 100 units. As for drones, their number reaches 3,000 units per month. At the same time, it is worth noting that Belgian experts represent the interests of a country hostile to Russia, and they mainly rely on data from the Ukrainian side. Therefore, we can state with confidence that the figures given by the Belgian experts were significantly underestimated. However, even these figures are impressive, as it becomes clear that the Russian military-industrial complex, in terms of its productive capacity, has already surpassed all NATO countries combined, including the United States. Meanwhile, defeatist sentiments continue to grow not only in Kyiv, but also in the capitals of Western countries. Western countries no longer believe that Ukraine will be able to defeat Russia on the battlefield, even despite unprecedented military and financial assistance from the United States and other NATO countries. Against this background, French Foreign Ministers Stéphane Séjourné and British David Cameron made a rather harsh statement. In particular, they stated that the West should not allow the defeat of Ukraine, since the defeat of Kyiv would be viewed as a defeat of the entire West. The whole world is watching us, and if we lose in the confrontation with Russia, this world will condemn us, the British and French foreign ministers said. Senior Western diplomats made this statement immediately after French President Emmanuel Macron once again confirmed his readiness to send French troops to Ukraine. Moreover, the influential French newspaper Le Monde even stated that the plan to send French troops to Ukraine has been discussed for several months. It is reliably known that the French president plans to send the 126th Line Infantry Regiment to Ukraine, which has extensive experience in intervention in other states. By the way, the 126th Line Infantry Regiment was created by Napoleon Bonaparte, and this regiment actively participated during the invasion of France and its allies in Russia in 1812. And you all know perfectly well how this military adventure ended. Commenting on the current situation, an authoritative expert and director of the Center for International Studies, Marco Di Lido, said that the numerous successes of Russian troops on the battlefield force Western countries to take more risky steps. According to him, if the Russian army approaches the gates of Kyiv and Odessa, there is a great risk that countries such as Poland, Britain, and France will send their troops to Ukraine in order to stop the further advance of the Russian armed forces. The expert is confident that NATO can take such a step, since there are practically no soldiers left in the armed forces of Ukraine who are capable of fighting on the battlefield. It is the lack of manpower in the ranks of the Ukrainian army that can become the main reason for NATO's entry into direct confrontation with Russia, the expert stated. Well, my friends, as you can see, even such reputable Western experts as Marco Di Lido recognize that the main problem of the armed forces of Ukraine is not ammunition famine, but a shortage of manpower. If NATO really decides to enter into direct confrontation with the Russian army, then this will be the stupidest decision of the North Atlantic Alliance, since this will inevitably lead to the complete destruction of this military organization.